Hi there, this is Catherine with Enfolded Heart Music. In this video, what I'd like to offer is a walkthrough of the song Traveler's Path. I'll say a few words on the specific song in a minute. There's some particular challenges to this one in regards to specifically making a tutorial video, but we'll get to that. But first, for those of you who have not watched these videos before where I do a walkthrough of a particular piece, just a word of what you can expect. So like I said, I'll be doing Traveler's Path, and basically what I'll do is go note by note through the whole piece. This is intended particularly for those who don't have a strong musical background. Maybe you have a vague musical background. You did, a little bit of band or choir or orchestra or something in high school or middle school or something like that. But you're not very able to do very well reading sheet music, or even just if you can read some sheet music, it just kind of feels overwhelming. You're not quite sure how to section things off and how to kind of absorb it in a manageable way. So this video walks you through that and also divides up and points out repetition, and I'll say, okay, this is a point where I would stop and work on this, make sure you got this before going on, or just give little indicators like that as well. Okay, so also, if you're unaware, there is sheet music available. There's two pieces in each PDF, two copies of the song in each PDF. The first one is just a total clean copy with your typical notation. The second copy, which if you just scroll down the file, you'll see the second copy start. And that you'll know it starts when it has I don't know if you'll be able to see this. It's probably too far, but it has the note name and octave number next to it. And so I know there's a number of folks who can kind of read sheet music, but having the letter actually there is helpful for you. So if that's where you're at, it may be helpful for you to have sheet music for two reasons. The first is because it's helpful for me to reference the measure number. So where we are in the piece, I could say, okay, we're on measure 130 through 146, and so you know exactly which part of the song that I'm working on. So it's just a helpful way for me to communicate with you, since this is a little bit of an odd medium to be teaching. But anyway, so that's one reason. And also, if you do want to get better at reading sheet music, this might be a more fun and just kind of nice way to practice learning it, and to also know if you're getting it correct or not. So just some thoughts on there. You're able to get it, I'll put links below. You can get it, the sheet music, either on a shop that I share with a friend of mine, or if you want to subscribe to Patreon, it's obviously a monthly subscription. You can check that out. It just kind of depends on how much you're going to be using the music and things like that. If you've got any questions about it, or certainly if you have any trouble with downloading or payment or anything like that, send me an email. Sometimes it's a little bit confusing for folks, or something on my end. That does happen sometimes. So send that email to me, and we'll get you taken care of as soon as possible. Okay, is there anything else? I think that's it. Okay, we're going to go through, just so you have a kind of table of contents. I'm going to talk about the song in general, talk about the key, meaning how you need to tune your strings. That's what I mean when I say key. That's the reason I bring it up. And I'm also going to walk through what are the different sections in the piece. There's a number of places where there's either exact repetition or very close repetition, and so I find that helpful just to speak to you about at the beginning. It helps kind of divide it up almost into kind of chapters, and I think it makes it feel much more doable for a lot of folks. So I'll do that, and then we'll jump into the piece after that. All right, here we go. Okay, so the first thing I want to note is just an overall kind of disclaimer about this particular piece. Traveler's Path was the first one that I actually recorded. It's the first one I released on YouTube. Whispers of Beauties was technically the first one I did, but Traveler's Path, it was a little bit different because it actually had a bit more improv, particularly in the left hand, than any of my other pieces. And so what I have on the sheet music is note for note. I watched the video, and I had a vague idea of what I played, because it wasn't all entirely improv, as you'll kind of probably catch. there's certain sections that repeat themselves a lot. So that was not improv, but particularly the left hand, that was a lot more improv than anything else. So the reason I haven't done this piece yet for a walkthrough is because of that. It's hard for me to play it exactly as it's indicated in the sheet music. Now, what I'm going to do my very best to do is to do it the way it's marked in the sheet music. The right hand I will make sure to do, because I think that's confusing if I don't. The left hand, there may be a little bit of leeway in that. I hope that's not too confusing for you. But it is a little bit of a challenge for me to do that. So when we do slowly, I will do the left hand exactly as it is. But as I'm playing larger sections, my left hand may do something a little bit different, which happens in a lot of my recordings. But this one in particular, since it was one of my first ones, the left hand just kind of jumped in whenever it felt right to jump in, and so I wasn't thinking about it very much. And even when I play the song now, I don't think about it very much, so it's not going to be exact. And this is different than Whispers of Beauty or Memories of Home. Those two pieces, I did those because the left hand was and is so repetitive, and it's exactly the same. Traveler's Path is a little bit different. And I should pause before I go into the left hand and explain that further. So, okay, so that's just a disclaimer. It's not going to be exactly note for note in the left hand when I'm doing larger chunks, but I will do that when we go slower. Okay, but before we jump into the piece, let's make sure we've got our lyres tuned as they need to be. Now, this lyre is a 19-string lyre, so this is more than we're going to need for the piece, but what you need to know for your lyre is that when you are tuning it, you don't want there to be any sharps or any flats coming up on your tuner. You want it to go just straight from one note to the next without having, an A sharp or an A flat or something like that. Now, if you do have the sheet music, what I've done to help you with this is we're going to start on page 4. And what page 4 is the beginning of the second copy of the piece. So this is the beginning of the copy that has the note names and the octave numbers on them. I'm using this because I'm assuming if you're using this video that you're not able to use sheet music very well, and so the note names are going to be of help to you. So when I reference the measure numbers, that's the copy I'm working from. So if you're on page 4, if you go to page 4, you look at the very top of the piece, you'll see a 16-string lyre tuning in A minor. This is the same as Whispers of Beauty as well. And like I said in that video, A minor is the same as C major. If that means anything to you, that's great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. It's just sort of, fun little information. A minor and C major, neither of them have any sharps or flats. So if you were looking at a piano, for example, you would not go on any of the black notes. You'd stay just on the white notes. And so what I have underneath that, you'll see G3, A3, B3, C4, etc., etc., etc. So this is the tuning that you want to have on your lyre if you have a 16-string lyre that has the lowest note on the side closest to you. If it's flip-flop, then just start from the other end. So 16-string, if you have the lowest note towards you, start with that note. That should be a G3. On mine, since I have a 19, this is actually an F. But if you don't have a 19, you have a 16, your lowest note is going to be this G3. So you'll go G3, then your next string should be A3, B3, C4, D4, E4, F4, G4, A4, B4, C5, D5, E5, F5, G5, and A5. And that A5 should be your top note. Okay? Now you're only going to use a handful of notes on the bottom, but it's nice to have it all tuned correctly. Okay, so make sure you've got that tuned and ready to go, at least pretty close. It doesn't always have to be absolutely exact. Excuse me. And the next thing I'd like to point out are those sections. What are the sections of how we can break this apart, how we can look at this? So I've got kind of four different sections that I think will be helpful for you to take note of. The first section I'm just going to call section A. Okay, and this repeats the most in the piece. It's what the piece starts with is probably when you think of Traveler's Path, if you listen to the song a number of times, it's probably the part that you most immediately think of and recognize because it's repeated not exactly the same, but very close, about 4 times. So if you like, I like to take a pencil and mark up my sheet music. I find that very helpful. The sheet music is for you, so don't be afraid to kind of get it dirty, I guess. Okay, I am going to be using the second copy. Again, that's the copy that has the note names and octave numbers with it. And that's just because I assume that if you're watching this video, that's probably, if you have the sheet music and you're watching this, probably the copy you're going to be using. So we won't be looking at measures 1 through 29 because it's the piece, it's just the first copy of that. So your first measure is going to be 130. Now to find what measure number I'm talking about, if you look on any of the pages all the way on the left hand side, you'll see these tiny little numbers. You should see 130 on the first line, then on the second one, 136, 141, 147, 154, etc. What that's saying is that that measure, the measure farthest on the left, is measure 130. And that's a sort of a signpost for you so that you can count then the rest of the measures. So what I mean by that is if we're starting at the beginning of the piece, you've got the first measure 130, you see that bar line, then you have 131 as that next measure. There's no measure number over it, but it assumes that you can count that. So you have 131, 132, 133, 134, 135. That's that first line. And then you should be 136, and you can check, make sure you're right by looking again at your signpost where it says 136 on the left. Okay, so again, if you're not familiar with sheet music but you're trying to get more familiar, that's how you know what measure number we're looking at. Okay, so for part A, if you'd like to mark this down, here are the sections. So part A goes from 130 to 146. It then repeats from measures 162 to 178. Then again at 194 to 210. It's 194 to 210. And then finally again at 242 till the end. Now there are some slight differences in some of these, but I decided to group them together because they were intended to be the same. And if you hypothetically were to play them all exactly the same, it would sound very, very similar to the recorded version I have for Traveler's Path on my channel. If I were to play this now for someone, I would probably play those basically all the same. Okay. All right, so you should have 4 sections marked A, meaning they're all pretty much the same, which is a large chunk of the piece. So that should make you feel better right off the bat that this theme repeats a lot. And so once you've got this, you've got a large part of the piece. All right, then we have part B, and this is going to start from measure 147 to 162. And then it's going to repeat. This is even a greater difference. They have a similar style, these 2 sections that I'm about to name, but they're more different than not. So you could even call one B1 and B2. B2, we might call it, is from measures 211 to 235. So again, sections B, where there's very similar but a little bit of difference. We've got measures from measures 147 to 162, and then again from 211 to 235. Okay, and then we have part C, which is from measure 178 to 194. And this is different from just about anything else in the piece, so it doesn't repeat, but it's nice to kind of note it. It's more of like a small bridge. Again, that's 178 to 194. And then we have part D, which again is only played once. It's again another kind of bridge, just to lengthen the piece a little bit, add something a little bit different, but it does not repeat. And it is towards the end of the song from 236 to 242. 236 to 242. Okay. Okay, so once you've got that, then you're kind of actually situated and ready to go. What we're going to do in the next part is I'm going to say a few words about the left hand. That will be a short section, a little bit different from Whispers of Beauty and Memories of Home. But then following that, we will jump into part A and get going with that. Okay, we are coming back now to take a closer look at the left hand. I've zoomed in so that you can get a closer look at the lyre itself and hopefully get a better idea of my fingering, what notes I'm playing, that kind of thing. Again, I'm playing on a 19-string lyre, which is going to be a little bit different if you've got it 16-string. But once we've got our fingers in place, it should be a nice reference for you. Okay, so the left hand, two things in particular I'd like to point out to you. The first is in comparison to Whispers of Beauty and Memories of Home. For those two pieces, we had the left hand as sort of strumming in the background in two different places. It moved, but it was the same notes played over and over again with some very slight changes to that. And so in that way, it was easy easy in the sense of it was consistent and was not moving all over the place. Great. Okay, this piece is different, like I mentioned before, because this left hand was improv. And one thing that is a little bit easier about the left hand in this compared to those is that it doesn't move at all, literally at all. So this piece, like I said, is in A minor. And so with the left hand, what I'd like for you to do is go ahead and we're going to place our left hand precisely because it doesn't move at all in the piece. And then so you can just kind of make that your home. You can make sure you're comfortable, you're positioned well, so that your left hand is not cramped up or is just uncomfortable in one way or another. And that will help us as we go through the piece. Okay, so you got to find your A string. Again, I have an F at the bottom, but most of you, if you got that 16 string, you're going to have a G at the bottom. So your A will be the second to last note. Pretend the string is not here. Yours will be the second to last note. It's going to be your A3. If you're ever not sure that you're playing the right note, you could always just turn on your tuner and pluck the note, and it should, if you have it, tuned correctly, it'll pop up with what that note is. So if that's ever a question for you, you could just do that. So we've got A3, B3, C4, and then if you skip a string, you're going to have E4. That should sound very familiar if you've walked through any of the other tutorials. Okay, so those are the main notes that you're going to be using almost exclusively in this piece. What I basically did, and you're welcome to try this, even encouraged to try this as you play, is just to hang tight with these four notes and try to do your own kind of improv with them. And what I mean by that is just adding it in a way that you think sounds nice and also is fitting for your playing capacity. So in that way, I think this is a nice video or a nice song to do a tutorial video on. And for those who are beginning with the instrument, and certainly beginning with two hands, it has a level of flexibility that maybe the other songs don't quite as much. So I'll try and illustrate what I mean by that in regards to improving a little bit or playing within your capacity as we go. But for right now, I would just make sure to get that hand situated again on the A and be particularly comfortable playing the A, B, C, E, and even back down. But if you've got the sheet music in front of you, you can just take a look at the left hand. Now the left hand is the bottom. You'll see that each line has sort of double lines in it, right? There's two different sets of notes. And you'll see on the far left-hand side, there's a little kind of curvy bracket. Okay, so the top line is what your right hand plays. The bottom line is what your left hand plays. That's what that's indicating. So if you're to look at that, even if you can't read it very well, you can see when notes go up and when notes go down. So you can see that most of the notes on the left hand are just them going up. Now, not all the time, but a lot of times it's just going up like this. So just get comfortable playing something like this. And just get kind of settled into that place. Once you've got that, you've got your left hand situated, come back for the beginning of this right hand when we put them together, and we'll go through part A. Okay, we're back for part A, and unlike with the other walkthrough tutorials that I've done, we're going to do a little bit more of left and right hand together slowly. What I was able to do with those, because that left hand was so repetitive, was to get you set on the left hand, then walk through the right hand, tell you to work on those, and then to eventually put them together. Because the left hand is not super consistent, some parts it is, but some parts it's not, we're going to have to break that down a little bit more, just like we did with the right hand in those previous tutorial videos. So let's go ahead and just jump into the piece, and if something I said doesn't make sense, hopefully it will as I actually flesh it out and show you what I'm talking about in the particular piece itself. So again, we're going to start with that second copy, where the first measure is actually measure 130. And you'll see that the right hand also starts on an A4. So if you've got a 16-string lyre like I had at the beginning, it'll be the first steel string. It kind of will change colors a little bit the way it reflects. But if you're not exactly sure which note this is, if you've got your left hand set again at that A, B, C, E, let's just count up from there. So we have E, F, G, A. This should be your A4. Okay. So that'll help you find that first string. And let's go ahead and just very simply do the first two measures, so 130 and 131. We'll get bigger chunks in a moment, but let's just start with that from the beginning. So we've got in the right hand A4, B4, C5. Then we have C5 again, and B4. So I'm going to go ahead and play that in the proper rhythm to help you hear it. And we're not going to put the left hand in. I would keep your left hand here just so you get the feel for what it feels like to hold the instrument in this way with both hands and keeping that left hand down there. But we're going to just focus on the right hand, then we'll slowly add in the left hand. So here's how that right hand sounds with just these first two measures. And that last note is the first note of the third measure, but it helps to have some context. One more time. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and extend that before we put that left hand in. I'm going to extend the section we're working on a couple of measures. We'll do 130, 131, 132, 133, and the first note of 134. This will have a nice kind of phrase to it. Let me mark that down. Otherwise we have too small a chunks and your ear can't catch it very well. So we've had A, B, C, C, B, and then in that third measure, this is measure 132, we have again C5, C5, C5. Now what I would suggest in this measure is to move your hand, because you can see that we're going to be going up all the way to F5 in the next measure in 133, and you're going to run out of fingers if you don't switch. So we've been doing our thumb on A and going up to that C. So in this third measure, where we've got three C's, at some point, probably between the first and second note, I would change from having your middle finger on the C to your thumb on the C. Okay, so this is what this would look like. Let me do that again for you. I ended on that D5. So let's go ahead and finish off this phrase and take a look at those following notes. So we're on measure 133. We have D5, then we skip a note, F5, D5, and we end the phrase on E5. So let's do that whole phrase with just the right hand. Again, I'm going to play it, get it in your ear, and then you try and slowly work through to being able to play just the right hand, holding that left hand nice and still and just sort of patiently in the background. Again. Okay. Now sometimes I will switch my thumb on that C from the middle finger to the thumb. I'll actually switch it between the second and third note. It doesn't really matter, it's just whatever's most comfortable for you. Okay. So now let's leave out the right hand and look at the left hand. What does the left hand have? We see it's actually very repetitive in these first couple of measures. Again, we're looking at 130 through 134 left hand. You'll see there's nothing that is there in the first measure. We just have the pickup notes of A and B. So that left hand doesn't come in until the C. Okay. So, but before we put the right hand and left hand in together, we're going to see that we have an A3, B3, C4, E4, and then it repeats A3, B3, C4, E4. And then once again, minus one note, we have A3, B3, C4, but the E4 is going to wait. And I'll place that in a moment. But rhythmically, this is how this will sound. Again. So at this point, what I would make sure you can do is play each of them separately, just this little bit, because like I've said many times before, I would not suggest doing really big chunks with just the right hand or just the left hand, because what you ultimately want is for them to go together. So I would be more patient and be slow having them together rather than being able to do long chunks separate, because you're going to end up relearning a lot. Even just muscle memory, that's actually primarily what I mean. If you basically learn a big chunk of the piece with your right hand and or your left hand, when you put them together, it's going to feel like you almost know nothing, which I find very frustrating. It's sort of like, why did I even practice that? It does something, don't get me wrong, but it's better, particularly with this kind of piece where the left hand is not just on autopilot, for you to do them slowly together. So I'm going to try and do this very slowly together. It may take me a couple of tries, but who knows, maybe it'll click on the first one. So this is how the right and left hand sound together. Do this only after you have them separately, quite comfortably, and go as slow as you need to. It may take you longer than you think. I don't mean that in a discouraging way. I mean to say that if you feel frustrated with it, it will click, but it may take a little bit of time for your hands to get used to cooperating together. So let me do these first 4 measures, 3.5, together. Again, 130 through the beginning of 134. Oops, that was not right. Let me do it again a little bit more smoothly. So this last note I play with my left hand is that E4. You'll see if you count over, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measures over. This is measure 134. You will see one note in that left hand, and that one note is E4. I'll play this a couple more times just so you can get it in your ear. And things to pay attention to help you put them together. Questions like, when do both hands play a note at the same time? Or when do they play by themselves? That might be something nice for you to take note of. If you're looking at the sheet music, they should be aligned vertically. If they're aligned vertically, they'll play at the same time. Also, hopefully you can see pretty well, even if you can't see the strings super well in the video, you'll still be able to see when my fingers are actually plucking at the same time. Now I'll try and go really slow to help you get an idea of how these go together. And then I'll give a few suggestions on how to work with that left hand if this feels like a little bit too much for you. But I would like to give an opportunity for those who want to learn the piece rather exactly to be able to do so. So again, let me do it a couple of times slowly with both hands, and then we'll move from there. One more time for you. Okay, hopefully that's enough where you can move back in the video, and watch that again if you need to. If it feels like too much to think about and coordinate with both hands, let's talk through maybe some more simple options. The first very simple option would be for you to simply play an A in your left hand at the beginning of each measure. Here's what that would sound like. Again. Now that'd be your most simple. It might sound kind of silly to be like, well, why would I just do that? It does add a nice kind of warmth base to the bottom of your piece. And so it does make a big difference, I think, to even have just that A. And also, if you're new with putting two hands together, it might be a really nice way to simplify this piece and make it more doable for you where you're at, and to still be a stepping stone in using both hands together. So that's one idea. If you've got that, or you feel like that's too simple, you're like, I'd like to try something a little bit more challenging than that. The other option would be to play the A and the E's only. Now this is going to be at the beginning and the end of the first two measures where the left hand plays. And then again, we have that delay in the E as we move forward in 134. So here's how that would sound. I'm sorry. Let me try that one more time. Again for you. And what that option would do is obviously to add a little bit more color to it. In the left hand, you have both of these, a nice fifth. It's a nice open sound. It also captures kind of the feel of the key in a way, so a little bit more color to it. It also adds a little bit more rhythmic interest to it, because with the right hand and left hand, they play in what's called a syncopated rhythm, which just means that instead of playing at the same time, they're playing on offbeats. They're playing, if you were to tap your foot, some notes are playing when your foot is down and some are when they're up. And so that adds a little bit of oomph to the rhythmic style of the piece. So those would be my two suggestions for you if it feels like too much to have all 4 of the notes, but you like to have the left hand in here. So again, either just play that A or play the A and the E. And I'd have to look at the rest of the piece to be able to say if that's a rule that you can have throughout the entire piece, but we're working on part A, which again is repeated about 4 times, so that's certainly something you could carry through at least for the majority of the piece. And I'll continue to give suggestions as we move forward, but I would take that and run with it if it's something that's helpful for you. Okay, so we went pretty slowly on those first measures, which is great. But let's go ahead and take all of that and continue to apply that to the rest of the piece. So again, we're going to leave that left hand on its own for a bit, and let's go ahead and take where we left off, which is the second half of measure 134, and we're going to go all the way until 36, 37, 38, 138. Now, if we're looking at that top line where there's the right hand, we'll see that the right hand doesn't really go all the way to 138, but the left hand does. But let's just take a look at the right hand. We left off with our hand kind of up here a little bit because remember we switched from the middle finger on the C to the thumb on the C. And so what you're going to need to do in measure 134 is shift that hand back down to where you started at the beginning of the piece, which is on that A, A4. So you'll see a lot of similarities in this first measure or so. Actually, more than similarities, it's exactly the same, which is great. So we have A4, B4, C5, C5, B4, back up to C5, down to G4, up to B4, down to A4. So again, that is, in case you didn't quite catch where we were, that was starting with the second to last note in measure 134, and then we played 135, 136, 137. Now I just did the notes and note names. I will do it rhythmically now, but I want to make a little note for you. In measure 136, that G4, you're going to need to make sure to shift your thumb down a string from where it is, because we started with the thumb playing an A, and it's going to need to play a G. Okay? So just a little note for you there. But let me go ahead and play that same section, but with the proper rhythm so you can get it in your ear. Again. As a little bit of an aside, something I have found quite helpful when I'm playing is with my right hand in particular, because it has the melody, is to try and keep my hands on the strings, as is natural to do, but as much as possible, and to use my current fingers that are on strings to reference where I need to go. So what I mean by that is, for example, in 136, if I were to, in the measures previous to that, come off of that too far, when I come back on, I'm kind of blind coming back on. But having my my middle finger on that C gives me a nice reference point for where the G is. Just a little bit of an aside there. Okay. Let's do that one more time, just for good measure. Now, what might be nice to do is to, just with the right hand, go from the beginning of the piece through 137. So let's go ahead and do that with the right hand, just to get an idea of what this is going to sound like. Okay, sorry, I had my fingers on a little too long. I muted that a little bit. Let's do that one more time. So I would go ahead, and that's a nice little section of the piece. I would go ahead and get comfortable with that just in your right hand. Add in your left hand as you can at the beginning, but once you're pretty comfortable with the right hand, we'll look at the left hand, which I'll go ahead and do now. So we will again see same pattern that we did in the first part. We have A3, B4, C4, A3, B3, C4, E4. This is measure 135. That's the proper rhythm. Exactly the same as we've been doing. And 136 is the same thing that we had in 133. So 135 and 136. Now 137, 138, I have that marked in the left hand. What I actually ended up doing on the video, and what I still do now sometimes, is a little bit awkward, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's less awkward than I think, which is why I do it, is I'm looking at measure 137. For that E4, I actually use my right hand to get that E4. You don't need to do that, but it is the way I'm probably going to do it. So we have C4, E4, C4, B3, A3. Here's how it sounds in the proper rhythm. One more time. One more time. So 135, 136, 137, and the beginning of 138. Let's do that real slow so you can get a sense for this chunk right here. Now, if you don't want to add your right hand in, here's how it would be. There's no particular reason that I use my right hand, except that's how I did it at the beginning. I think I just wasn't as strong with my ring finger in the left hand, and that's really kind of the only reason that I did it that way. But and so it's just sort of out of habit. So do it whatever way is more comfortable to you. Some people will probably like to do it because that finger is going to be a little weaker. Others won't, because you're going to kind of lose your spot on your right hand and have to jump back a little bit farther. So just kind of personal preference. But, so I'm going to use my right hand. Use your left hand if you so desire. Let's go ahead and do both hands together real slow. 130, the end of 134 through the beginning of 138. And last time. Now, what I'd like to point out before we put the two together is measure 137. The timing of that is kind of fun, but maybe a little tricky if you're not used to it. All I really want to communicate here is that in measure 137, after you play this A, you're going to wait a beat and a half before coming in with the left hand. This is what it will sound like. I'll count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So the excuse me, the left hand comes in on an upbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So to put that in context. Okay. So that's just to point out that there's a little bit of a wait time before that left hand comes in, and that again is a nice little sort of interest in the rhythmic feel of the piece. That's just kind of nice, and I think that's kind of important to get when you're playing this piece, just because it's part of the feel of the piece. So okay, let's go ahead and start from the beginning, 130 through 138. Both hands together. Again, if you'd like to just do an A on the right hand, or excuse me, left hand, or an A and an E, I would encourage you to do that, except maybe at the very end where you have the nice, because it's the only thing that plays right there. So I'm going to do it as is written, and I'll illustrate a more simple version in a moment. So here we go, beginning, that's measure 130 to the beginning of 138. Okay, one more time. A more simple version. Okay. All right, we're gonna leave it there and keep going. Otherwise, this video is gonna take me forever. But I do want to go slow with this. I recognize that this piece is going to be a little bit slower because compared with the other walkthroughs, we got to do right and left hand. So it's definitely going to take a bit more time. So just for those of you who are doing this, if you've already done one of those, it's going to take some more time because that left hand needs more attention. So we are at the end of 138. What I'd like to do, let's go ahead and do 138, 139, 140, 140 in the beginning of, 141 and the beginning of 142. Let's do that as our next phrase. So again, let's look at the right hand. We see we've got lots of similarities already. Actually, if we look at it very closely, we'll see it's the same as what we've already done. So we're going to move pretty swiftly through this. So here's that right hand starting at the end of 138. So we actually don't need to spend time on that, because if you are at this point in the video, that means that you have already gotten quite comfortable with the measures previous to this. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just tack this actually on to the rest of the piece, which is nice. This also means if you're practicing and this is the place where you're at, where you've gotten to the beginning of 142, one nice thing you can do with a number of these pieces, but with this particular section, is you can play it in a loop. Okay, so because there's repetition, you'll get used to the transitions between the different sections that we've done already, and so you don't have to stop and start over. You can just sort of play it in a nice loop, which I always like when I can practice that way. It makes it a little bit less tedious, I think. But anyways, okay, so let's start at 130 and go ahead and play through 142, both hands. Okay. Now let's finish off what is part A and look at the right hand at the end of 142 all the way through 146. So we've just ended on that E5. Let's see, C, let's see, A, C, E. Okay. We've just ended with that's in 141. So we've ended with our middle finger on that E5. What I would do is switch over to your pointer finger on E5 in measure 142, because we're going to need to jump up to the A, which if you've got a 16-string lyre, that will be your top note. Okay. And so that A, if you've got your pointer finger on E3, the next note is A5. that's going to be if you count up a couple of strings. So we have E5, F5, G5, A5. I'd use these two fingers for this. Okay. So we have E3, A5, E3 again. Sorry, that's a typo. That should be E3. Okay, I just realized there's a typo. In 142, it should be E5 as the first note. It should also be E5 as the second note. Obviously, it's the same note on the page. So E5, E5, A5. So E5, E5, A5, E5, D5, D5, E5, D5, C5, B4, C5, B4, G4, A4. Okay, now let me try and do this in the proper rhythm. This is the only part of the A sections that's a little bit different. But here we go. Right hand only, proper rhythm, so you can get that in your ear. Again. One more time. Excuse me. Now let's take a look at the left hand at the end of this section A. We're going to measure 143. And we see we have just about the exact same thing. Again, we have A3, B3, C4, E4, A3, B3, C4, E4, and then I'm going to leave out those last two notes, that C4 and B3 in 146, because that kind of leads into the next section rather than being any part of section A. So here's that left hand. Again. Let's pick these two together now. This is also where I'd be kind of flexible with your left hand. This is where it's a little bit different in, again, the different times when section A repeats itself, it's a little bit different. And that's just, again, because it was sort of improv for me, and so I was just trying to add in a left hand that would be a nice base for it, and it's not going to be absolutely exactly the same, which is pretty normal for any kind of performance or any kind of playing through. You're not going to play everything exactly the same way. I mean, some people do, but I don't think it's super necessary. Okay, so let's go ahead and measure the end of 142 to the end of part A, which is 146. Again, you don't have to add those last two notes, that's just for my practice. Okay, again. Last time with that all together. Okay, once you've finished that, let's put all part A together. If you're feeling overwhelmed at this point, once you've got part A together, remember it repeats 4 times. And so once you've got this down, you have a significant part of the song down. You probably have, I mean, my goodness, you probably have about half of the piece down already. Again, minus a few things that are a little bit different. And I really mean very different, just a few notes that are a little bit different, but you already have most of it down. So this is going to be slower because you want to get this really good. Otherwise, you're going to run into it again several times later and be like, well, shucks, I wish I would have gotten that down much better than I did at that point. You're going to have to rework it a bit. So Take these in these, what did I divide it? I divided it up into 4 sections, part A into 4 sections. Make sure you've got those hands together as comfortably as you can. Don't worry about making the left hand amazing. It's mostly there as a kind of, almost a drone, just a kind of background to add a nice bass to it, except for a few moments when it plays on its own. But otherwise, you don't need to worry about being too fancy with that. I'd focus on the right hand and putting them together as you're capable of in regards to your just familiarity with the lyre and your playing capacity. Okay, so let's do 130, the beginning of the piece, to 146. I'm gonna try and do it quite slow. You're welcome to play along with me, or just to listen and to get an idea of which section of the piece we are walking through. So I'll do it 2, maybe 3 times. Here we go. If you do want to add that C and B on the left hand, it's a nice way to practice the transition between part A and part B. If you don't, that's totally fine. Let me do it again for you. Okay. Now I do think I'm doing the left hand a tiny bit different on those final measures, but that's what we're that's sort of as best as we're gonna get for this. It's sort of what comes right now and what I think sounds nice. But again, it's mostly improv on that left hand. Do what sounds good to you. Anything on that A, B, C, and E, particularly the A and the E, is gonna sound just fine. Okay. Okay, well, let's pause there. I'd like to kind of add a curtain draw, and then the next time you come back, we're going to be in part B. We're going to have some nice chords in there. It's got a little bit of a different feel to it, so come back for that. Alrighty, we are back now for part B. Part B goes from measures 137 through the beginning of 162. And this is a little bit of an interesting part for 2 reasons. The first is that we have a little bit of chords, which just means that we're playing more than one note at the same time in the same hand. So rather than just, for example, rather than just playing, let me find my note, an A, we'll play an A and a C, oops, at the same time. Okay. So that's the first reason. That's kind of a nice, something a little bit different sound-wise. And also we have, for the majority of this section B, we have more movement in the left hand than in the right hand, which is kind of fun. So again, I'm going to do it as strictly as I can to the sheet music, but if you like to kind of play around or you want to be a little bit more comfortable just playing on the lyre rather than necessarily having to play particular notes, this might be a fun place for you to try a few different rhythms or a few different combination of notes just to see how it sounds. You could do something a little bit different every time you play it, whatever you'd like. If you don't like to do that, that's totally fine. But it would be a good section if you so desire. So let's go ahead and get started on the right hand in this. I'm going to divide it up into I guess we'll do 4 different sections again. It's kind of 2 different ones, but we'll do 4 to keep it nice and short, and then we'll put them together. So we're starting at 147. Let's do 147, 148, 149, and 150 for our first section in the right hand. And let's just stop there for a moment. So again, we know that that left hand doesn't move, so we've got to find that A again. Okay. And so we just hold that there, hold that silent for a minute, and let's look at where our right hand is going to be. So if you're looking at the sheet music, again, you'll have 2 notes at the same time. If you don't, then just watch where I'm placing my fingers. So again, we're going to start on that A4, which is where we've been starting just about any other time so far. And you'll be playing A4 and C5 at the same time. So C5 is, if you skip a string, you skip this B, then you'll have C. So you should have A, B, C. A with the thumb and C with the pointer finger. And what I would do right now is just practice playing those at the same time. I kind of just pinch them. Like you just kind of close your fingers like that. Oh, you can't see very well. Close your fingers like that. And you're kind of pulling them like that together. And try going back and forth between the A and C together and the B and D together, which is just moving one string up. I like to have a nice little kind of hop to my hand. Helps keep me relaxed. Should be kind of fun. Okay, so you've actually already done most of this first section if you've done that already. So we have A4 and C5 in measure 147. Then 148 we move up one string and do same thing but with B4 and D5. Then we will have C5 and E5. Then we go up one more again and we have D5 and F5. And then we'll come back down to C5, E5. So here's how this sounds with the proper rhythm. Again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let's do it one more time just for good measure. All right. Once you have that, you know what, let's go ahead and take a look at the left hand. I think that'd be a good idea. So what you'll see are, you have the same notes, but they are in a little bit of a different rhythm. They're actually a little bit slower. So what's kind of neat or nice about this section is because of the different rhythms, you have a lot of same notes, but everything kind of slows down for a moment. So there's kind of a drama to it in the way that the shape of the piece. And then after part B, we're actually going to go right back to part A. So we have some again, what's called syncopated stuff in part A, where it's kind of going back and forth. This kind of offbeat stuff that kind of makes you want to, I don't know, you just sort of, you feel the oomph of the piece, for lack of better words. And then part B, you have, it's like someone who pulled the brakes, and so it catches your ear in a different way. That's nice and interesting. So that just to give you a feel for this part in part B. Okay, so we're gonna switch to the left hand in measures 147. Again, what's 47, 48, 49, 50. We're gonna go from 147 to 150. Again, I'd be flexible with what you're doing in the left hand here. But what I've got here is actually quite simple, so we'll stick with that. We have A3, B3, C4, E4, back down, C4, B3, A. After that, we have, this is not correct. This should be an F. F4. Okay. So this is one of the only notes. I'm looking at measure 149, that second note. The first note is an A3. The second note is marked as an A4, which is just wrong. I must have been reading that in bass clef. That is in F3. Is that right? No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. That's in F3. I'm sorry, F4. F4. Okay. And so we've been playing up to the E4, but you'll see that that is in F4. So it's one string up. F4, E4, C4, B3. That was measures 149, the second half of 149, and 150. So let me play this section that we've got 147 through 150 in the proper rhythm, and then we'll put it together and make a little bit more sense. Again. Now with this F4 and E4, that's going to be asking a lot of that ring finger most likely. So just know that that might take a little bit of time to get in there, but it does shift nicely with the right hand. So let's go ahead and put those two together. Again, take your time, do it as slow as you need to do. Make sure you've got the right and left hand together, separately, pretty comfortable. It doesn't have to be perfect, but comfortable, okay? And once you've got that, then you're ready to put them together. So let's see what this sounds like together. 147 through 150. Slow. Again. Oops, see, I missed that left hand. I'm not sure if you could hear that or not. Let's do it one more time. Okay. And that's it for that section. Let's go ahead and move now to looking at the end of 150 through 153. So just a few more measures right there. So we'll see, we're going to start on those same notes in the right hand. We're just taking the right hand, A4 and C5. Then we again move up, same thing, B4 and D4. And this is where it's a little bit different. Then we have B4. So we've just played B4 already, but as a chord. So the second one is just as a single note. So again, A4, C5, B4, D4, B4 again. And then we end with E4 and A4. You'll notice this E4 is what your left hand plays a lot, so you're going to have to make sure to move that finger out of the way. So let's play these two measures. We are at 151, 152, and 153. The left hand is very similar to what we just did. You could make it exactly the same if you so desired, but let's take it as it is. We have A3, B3, C4, E4, and then A3, C4, and you know what, let's keep going to 154. Then we have B3, E4, A4. Measure 154 would be another measure that I would make sure that your left hand can get, because it's a nice little interesting part. You'll see that we play B3 play a pattern that we don't normally play in this song, and so it's a little bit different, and that catches the ear in a different way. So let's play that left hand starting in 151 through 154. You'll hear what I'm saying. Again. Okay. Now, I played an extra note. I played the first note on 1 to 55 just as a transition note. Sometimes that's helpful to do. So let's put this together then. Same measures, 151, 152, 153, and 154. Let's do that again. I was a little bit hesitant there. One more time. Now let's put that all together from the beginning of part B, 147 through 154. Again. And last time. Okay. With this one, with this section, I'm thinking about how to make it more simple. Really, I really would probably try and do it as is written, particularly at the beginning where that left hand is. That's just a nice thing to be able to do, a nice kind of exercise to be able to do. So, if you're really not wanting to do that, which is totally fine. I mean, really, throughout the entire piece, you could just play the A over and over again, or even A and E. There might be a few moments of clash, but you could do that. Let's see how that would even sound. Okay, I'd probably just do the A, actually. Excuse me. That's an option. It does sound a little bit empty, in my opinion. If you'd like to make this section easier, what I'd actually recommend is leaving the left hand as is and simplifying the right hand. The way to do that would be to take out the chorded nature of it. What I mean by that is you would play only the top notes. So rather than A4 and C5, you just play C5. So rather than, you just play, excuse me. That would be the way to do that. Okay. Yeah, that's probably the way I would simplify it rather than messing with the left hand, because otherwise it kind of sounds a little bit anemic. Maybe not. Maybe you're okay with that. But if you wanted to sound like the actual song, then that's what I would do. I would take out the chorded, that bottom note, the chorded nature of it, and just stick with that top note. But okay, so let's go ahead and finish off part B, and we're gonna do that by just recognizing, first of all, that if we're starting in measure 155, we look at 155, 156, 157, and the beginning of 158. If you take that and compare that to the beginning of section B, you're going to see it's exactly the same. Okay, the only difference is in the left hand, and that was kind of an oopsie. That's what I mean by improv, where I didn't quite do it exactly the same, but I would now. It just means that I didn't quite have enough mental energy, I suppose, to be able to play it exactly the same, but I would. At this point, I just write the sheet music exactly as it is played in the recordings that I share on my channel, just out of fidelity to that. But I'm going to play it the same as it's played in 147 here, because that's how I would actually play it now, and I think it's going to be more simple and easier to communicate to you. Hold on, let me get the strap out. Okay. So, with that said, what I like to do then is, instead of repeating that step by step, let's just add that on. Same thing that we did in part A. So we're going to play part B from the beginning, which is 147, all the way and through, all the way until, let's see, 55, 56, 57, 58, the beginning of 158. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and do that. Stop there. Do that a couple of more times. Make sure you're comfortable with that. Again, you can just loop it. Okay? And just play that over and over and over again. But for the sake of time in the tutorial, let's go ahead and keep moving, and we're going to actually finish off part B. This will be the end of 158 plus 159, 160, 161, and the beginning of 162. Excuse me. So the right hand comes back in as the melody a bit more, or at least with more interest, we could at least say that. We've just ended with C5 and E5. Okay. With our thumb and our pointer finger. What we're playing next is then an F5. I would scooch this pointer finger up one, and so that you can then reach the A5. So okay. So we have F5, A5, F5, E5, D5, E5. Then you skip down one string, and it's E5. Then it's B4. If you have an old copy, it's wrong. It should be B4, not B3. B4. And then A4, G4, B4, A4. If you are watching this tutorial, excuse me, if you are buying the sheet music after this tutorial, these little typos will be fixed. This was done manually. My letters and numbers were done manually. That's before I figured out a plugin that does it automatically. So it takes me going step by step to recognize where there are errors in it. I apologize for that. So let's go ahead and do this right hand just by itself in the proper rhythm. Let me play that for you so you can get that in your ear. Oops. My apologies. Let me do that again for you. One more time. Now the left hand on this part is quite straightforward. If we are looking at starting at measure 159, we just have A3, then C4, then A3, B3, C4, B3. So how this will sound: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So once you have that, let's put them together. One more time. Okay. And then let's put it all together. If these sections are feeling a little too short for you, like you can't quite get the feel of it, this might be the case, particularly if you've listened to the song a lot, so you already kind of know how it sounds, but it's too awkward to pause this frequently. You're welcome to combine these in two, and I'd probably do 147 through 154, and then 155 through 162. So again, with any of this is just suggestions. Take it at what feels most comfortable for you. Be patient, and make sure you've got things, particularly when you've got the whole section. I'd have a pretty strong stop sign there to make sure that you're real comfortable and capable of playing that section as you'd like to be able to play it before moving on. Otherwise, you're going to take too much in at once. But that's up to your own discretion. Okay, so let's go ahead and play all of part B. I'll do that a couple of times for you. Again, real slow. I'm going to try and make that left hand exactly as it is. That may not be totally successful, but I'll do it as best I can exactly with the sheet music. Either way, I'll do it such that you'll be able to hear how it should be. The right hand will be correct, though. Or exact, I should say. Okay, 147 through 162. Again. One more time for you. Okay. Now, you will see that after this, we have part A again. And as far as I can see, it's exactly the same. So what I would actually do, if I were you, what I would recommend doing, is what I keep talking about with this looping. And so this is nice. Anytime there's a kind of sandwich where you have A, B, A, meaning just the beginning, you have one section, then you have a second section, and then it returns to the first section again. You can just go A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B forever. And you're practicing the transitions between those. And I think this is nice instead of having to stop all the time and go back and start again. It helps just to have a nice flow. And I don't know, I find it nice to just be constant playing rather than feeling like I'm just grinding on a section. And so because we have in a I don't know, we have a big sandwich. We have in these big sections, we have A, B, A again. That is what I would do at this point. So let's go ahead and do that now. The alternative, otherwise what you would do is do A and B together, because that's how far we are in the piece. So once you finish the section, you want to tack that on, and that's not just playing the few measures before and then the new section. That means playing everything before plus the new section. It means both, but you definitely don't want to leave out playing everything and then getting to that new piece. Sometimes what I find is that I have got the new part really well, but then once I leave it and go back to what is already familiar with me, to me, by the time I get back to the new part, my muscle memory and my my cognitive memory need to be worked on a little bit. I realize I've sort of forgotten it because I've been focused on this other section a bit. So it's a nice way to exercise those muscles both in your mind and in your fingers. So, but what we're gonna do is start at the very beginning of the piece in measure 130, and we're gonna play all the way until 178. Again, what this is gonna look like is we're gonna play part A, part B, and then part A again. After that is part C, which we'll go through slowly in the next sort of chapter section of this video. But for now, let's see if we can go all the way through. I'm taking a quick glance. I've already done this, but I want to just double check that as far as I can see, everything in the sheet music is exactly the same in part A as part A the second time around. That's in measures 162 through 177. If there are slight differences, they are very, very slight, and I would not do those on purpose if I were you. I think that's unnecessarily difficult. Again, my intention of doing the sheet music like it is just to remain faithful to the video itself. I don't want to say here's the sheet music for it, but it's not exactly the same. That feels confusing to me. But because I'm able to sort of talk with you who's receiving this, I would play when section A repeats. I would by and large play that exactly the same. You might make some mistakes, but that's fine. That might just be a little coloring in there. It might work out just fine. But in regards to what you're trying to play, I played them the same. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do 130 through 177. Again, slow. I would do it slow, slow. Part B. A. Okay. I'm actually going to keep that in the video. Sometimes when I really goof up, I crop it out, but I'm going to keep that for two reasons. One, I don't play it perfectly every time by any means. Second of all, it's honest. The second reason is to illustrate that if you land on the wrong string or like I hit the wrong note, I hit a F instead of a E. I did. Excuse me. First of all, it didn't ruin the piece. It was totally fine. That first one, I planned on keep on going anyways because it seemed silly to start over. The second one was different because I landed on the wrong note. I started on the wrong one, so it kind of threw everything off. But what I'm getting to is that if you're going through these run-throughs and you messing up, try not to stop and start over, or even to stop at all. Because what that does is two things. One, it sort of emphasizes your mistake more than maybe necessary, and so it may create frustration for you and discouragement. Also, if you're wanting to play, even just for friends and stuff, if you make a mistake and you stop, they know it. A lot of times you can make a mistake and they don't really know, or unless you make a face like, oh no, I just messed up. I've had friends tell me that before. I didn't know that you made a mistake until I looked at your face. And so, anyways, it's just good practice to keep going with it. you know, you're getting a lot more notes right than wrong. And so I think that's nice to just keep going with it. The second reason, besides just kind of your disposition and attitude, would be that it can create a muscle memory habit of stopping when you're not intending to stop. So say you mess up at a certain point, you can sort of scrub at that point by working, like say you're messing up one of the measures or one little section, work on either side of it with the treble section in the middle. Kind of scrub that a little bit and then add it back in. But otherwise you're going to be playing and then you'll stop at the same point and kind of go back, and what that's actually telling your mind is that you're supposed to stop there, which is not true. And so again, I would just try and keep going as much as you can, not taking the mistakes as a big deal or as a huge point of frustration, but just as something that happens, and it may not even happen again. It may just be that one time. So, okay, that's a long explanation. Let me do that again, so that if you want to play with me, I'll make sure this is a clean copy of it. So here we go. Beginning to 178. All right, and see, that one went great, and I didn't even redo it. Okay, sounds good. Once you're there, again, get that real comfortable, and maybe just take note of how much you've done. If you've got the sheet music, you've done a huge part of the piece. And come back for part C when you're ready. Okay, we're back now for part C. We're going to divide part C into two chunks because it in and of itself repeats a fair amount. This was almost purely improv, and what I mean by that is I didn't really know exactly what I was going to play at all on this, whereas like part A, I played that enough where I thought, yeah, okay, I'll just return to this. Even part B, I sort of had that in my fingers a little bit, even though the left hand was kind of just impromptu. But part C and part D were just kind of whatever came exactly on that recording. So that's also to say that if you want in part C, which is from measures 140, excuse me, I don't know why I said 140, 179 through the beginning of 194, you know, if you want to just do a little bit of improv there, keep that left hand where it's at. You don't have to, but it might be a nice thing to do, and play around with the right hand. Then that might be very fun, and it might be a nice opportunity for you to write a little bit yourself if that's something you're interested in. So if not, that's also completely fine, and we will walk through it. So just an option for you if you desire. So let's take a look now at that right hand. We're just going to do this again in two chunks. Again, 179, and then we're going to go through 185. Take a look at the right hand. We've got A4. This is a theme. We start on A. Okay. The tricky part about this section maybe is that there's some jumps in it. And this is going to be a matter also of just intuitively knowing how big your hand needs to be for whatever size. You know, a third, a fourth, a fifth, an octave. Where's it? Okay, so that might be something just in general to do, is practice without looking. Just to get some comfort on that, on just how that actually feels, so that you kind of know you're in the right place without having to look. But for the time being, let's look at what we got. We've got A4 and then E5. So A, B, C, D, E. Okay, so A4, E5, A4, D5, C5, D5, C5, B4, A4. We're going to keep going. A4, E5, A4, F5, then D5, E5. Another typo there. It says B5 and measure 184. That should be a D5. Okay, so how does this sound with the proper rhythm? Here we go. Let me do that a couple more times for you. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, once you have that down, let's look at the left hand. Same thing as I kind of said in part B with the left hand. It's kind of whatever I could manage at the time. So, but it would be good enough for this. Okay, so we have, it's really just playing around, particularly between the A, B, and C. But to look at the sheet music specifically, starting at the end of 178, we have A3, A3, skip a note, C4, A3, D3, C4, A3, B3, C4, A3, C4, A3, C4, B3, A3, E4. So how does this sound rhythmically? We have a pickup note, so we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let me do that a few more times for you. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Last time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now let's see if we can slowly put this together. I'm going to try and do the left hand exactly that way, but I may have a few slight differences. The right hand will be good to go. Here we go. This is measures the pickup note, or that second half of 178 all the way through 185. Okay, that was a good one. That was exactly right on the left hand. Let's see if we can do that again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Perfect. Okay, once you have that section, we're going to break it into, I don't know. We did a long section there. Let's do the same thing again. Okay, there's a lot of repetition anyways, so yeah, we can do this. Okay, so looking at 187. If you look at 187, 188, 189, and the first note of 190, in the right hand, you see that's exactly the same as the first part of section C. So those measures 179, 180, 181, and 182, which is a theme. You notice I do this a lot in my pieces. I return back to a theme. I like to do that. Okay. So we know that's the same. Let me play that for you so you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is at 187. Okay. So that was 187, 187, 188, 189, and the first note of 190. Let's start at 190. We have A4, B4, A4, G4, A4, B4, G4, B4, A4. So here's how this section is going to sound. Starting at 187, going through 193. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Last time, without me counting. Now that left hand, here's another example of, I would do the same. So if we're looking at the left hand in 187, 188, and 189, you'll see it's different than I have it, even though the right hand is the same. And that's just because of, I just wasn't able to play it exactly the same when I was doing it for the recording. But for the purposes of practicing and wanting to get it correct, I would tell you to feel free to go ahead and just repeat that exactly. It's not going to hurt the piece whatsoever, may even help it. So we'll do that there. But then starting at, what was that, 87, 88, 89, 90, 190, we've got C4 in the left hand, A3, B3, C4, and then going back down again, C4, B3, A3. So here's how this sounds in 187. Sorry, excuse me. 187, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's go ahead and put them together at this point. 187 to 194, beginning of 194, with both hands. Again. And once you've got that, let's put all of part C together, both hands, with the pickup note. 1, 2, 3. One more time. Part C. 1, 2. Okay. Once you've got part C, I would do the same thing as we've been doing before. Put that on to the rest of the piece. You'll notice if you have your sections marked, that the section that follows section C is section A again, except the left hand, there's some differences in the left hand, and also that the end of it is slightly different. So we're going to take that. I'll point those out to you in the next section. But what I'd like to do now is go ahead and add what we just did, part C, to the rest of the piece. So we'll do from the very beginning all the way through 194, the beginning of 194. Pretty good. I missed one piece there, or one note there in part C, but again, same thing. I would just let it go, because there's all sorts of different options for different pieces. It's all right to play a slightly different note when it's not on purpose. So anyways, I'd get that going, putting it all together, played a few times through, particularly because we're doing it in sections. The trickiest parts are probably going to be your transitions between sections, because you've been practicing them in isolation. So that's what I probably focus on as you're putting this together more and more. And once you've got that, we're going to come back and take a look at some of the variations in part A for just a moment, and then get into part B in its second variation. Okay, we're back for the next section. What I'd like to do before moving on into part B variation 2 is to take a look at this return that we have again to part A. And what I'm referring to is in measures 194. So we've just finished part C. And my intention when I was playing it was to, again, do the exact same part A. But the left hand, I kind of forgot what I was doing, I think. In a certain sense. Anyway, so you'll see the left hand is different, again, for the sake of simplicity and also for consistency throughout the piece itself. I would probably not change that left hand. I'd continue to do it as we've been doing it, right? Okay. I do return to that a little bit later in it. But yeah, I wouldn't change the left hand. The only other part, excuse me, that is a bit different is if you flip your page. So this section where we have okay, that is what was usually played. Or has been played, but I had a little bit of a missed note. So this is a good example of what I've been talking about. I missed a note, but I kept going with it, and I thought it turned out very nice. So I'm looking at measures the end of 206 through 207, 08, 09, in 210. And if we take a closer look at that, it's a little bit different. So we still have the E5 to A5, E5, A5, back to E5. I'm at the beginning of 207 now. E5, D5, C5, D5, C5, B4, C5, B4, G4, A4. So 208, 209, those are different. Let me play that for you as it's actually written in the sheet music. Let me do that again. I hesitated a little bit. Again. So I think two things. One, you could either, if you want to keep it real simple, keep playing it part A like we've been playing it, not as I just played it. However, if you like the way that this sounds and you like a little bit something more of a challenge, it is nice to have a little bit of variation, particularly since I've played section A and we'll play it four times in the whole piece, which is kind of a lot. And so it is a little bit of a nice flavor change, you could say. So I am going to go ahead and try and play that when I'm playing through these sections. I will go ahead and try and play it as it's written in the sheet music and as it is in in the video on my channel. But just know that if you want to keep it simple, even more simple, you can just play that part A as we've been playing it. But what I like to do at this point, I'm not going to play through it. If you want to work on that, again, I do 130 all the way through 208, 9, 10, 210. But I'm not going to do that sort of for time's sake. And it's pretty simple to just go ahead and do it on your own practice. What I'm going to jump to now is part B. I'll call it version 2 because it is a bit different. If you're taking a look at the sheet music, we're at 210 through 223. Let's see, 223, 224, 225, 225. Okay. And what makes it similar? Well, we have the chords again, except it doesn't go quite to the same notes. Again, I intended it to, but I like how it turned out instead, because it's a little bit different, but it has the familiar but different blend very nicely. So I am going to stick with the variation that I have here. If you want to make it real simple, you can play this part B like you have the first one, but I think it's nice to have the slight variation that's actually written in here. So we're going to stick with that and assume that that's what you're going for. So let's take a look at the right hand in 211. Again, we have A4 and C5 like we've had before. Oops. Then we move up to B4, D5. And instead of continuing to move up like we did before, you actually move back down. So you have this move in. Okay, and that's the same rhythm that it actually is. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you rest for 3. Okay. We're going to keep going with the right hand, and we're measured 215. We repeat the chord A4 and C5. Then we'll go up to B4, D5 once again. And then we actually skip a note and go up to D5, F5. And down one string, C5, E5. So we're going to pause there. That's where we're going to divide this section up. So let's start at the beginning of that. And it's all just dotted half notes, which means it's the full measure. So if you don't know what that means, that's okay. Just listen and you'll get what you need to, I think. So we're going to start at 211 and go through, 15, 16, 17, 18, 218. 211 through 218, right hand only. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I like that very much. That going up to the F is nice to the ear. Okay, so that's the right hand. That's it in that half of the section. But before we move on, let's take a look at the left hand. As always, we're going to have it on that A. But we have 2 pickup notes. But let's just go through and make sure we know kind of the order of the notes that we've got here. So we have C4, B3, A3, B3, C4, A3, C4, A3. And then we have a nice little, I actually dropped my right hand on this E again. C4, E4, C4, B3, A3, A3, B3, C4, C4, B3, A3, B3. So let's put that how it actually is going to go in the piece. Okay, I'll leave that out. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So again, you might be able to feel like, this doesn't feel like it's very consistent. It's not repeating itself very much. That's true. Again, that left hand is doing kind of improv. If you'd like to do that on your own, it'd be a good time to do that with your left hand. But I'm going to stick with the sheet music as best as I can, certainly as I'm doing just the left hand by itself. Let's do that again, left hand only. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Once you have that, let's put that right hand in. It'll make a little bit more sense with that left hand. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3. Last time. Beautiful. Okay. We're going to start from measure 219 now with the right hand. You're going to see a lot of similarities. Before moving into part D, which is our final new section. So measure 219 through 225. Let's take a look at that in the right hand. Again, we have A4, C5, B4, D5, A4, C5. So we see that's the exact same of what we just started with. And then instead of going back up, we have B4, and then we have E4 and A4. So we got to share that with that left hand. That's in measure 223. Then 224, we have G4 and B4, and then E4 and A4. And that finishes that section. So how does this sound all together? Here we go. This is measure 219 to 225. Right hand only. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Left hand, same suggestion that I've had before. I keep it as similar as possible, though it is different on the sheet music. Let's take a look at the sheet music. Starting with the pickup notes, those are the two last notes in measure 218 in the left hand. We have C3, B3, A3. Then we climb back up, B3, C4. That first note should have been a C4. So let's start that again. We have pickup notes in 218. C4, B3, A3, B3, C4, C4, B3, A3, B3, C4, B3, A3, B3, C4, C4, B3, A3. What you will notice is that as I was playing this, what my improv meant was basically just going up and down between the A, the B, and the C. So even if you're not playing it exactly right, you're going to get a very, very similar sound and something that's sort of uniquely your own. If you just play with these three notes with, place in different places. So here's how it sounds according to the sheet music and according to the actual Traveler's Path recording that I have up on the channel and in my store. Here's the rhythmic sound of that left hand. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's add that right hand in. We'll see how that sounds all together. Measure 219 with those pickup notes in the left hand. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2. Now let's put this whole section together. Section B, variation 2, starting at measure 211. I'm sorry, starting at measure 210 with the left hand. 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Same thing as we've been doing. Once you get that, let's go ahead and tag that onto everything else. I do have a page flip in here. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do that at this point, but we will see. We may have a little bit of a pause here. Okay. Everything from the beginning all the way through until measure 225. And then we will be almost at the end of the piece. Okay, here we go. Part B. C. A. B again. Okay, so I had a page flip in there. I apologize if that threw you off. I'm not exactly sure how to do that better. Everything was great. The only part that didn't quite make it was in C, part C. I went a little high on one of them, but it's a good example of what I'm talking about, where you just kind of go with it and try and work your way back down to what note you should be on. And I think it sounded just fine. I would have used that in my recording if that's how it came out before. So I thought it sounded nice. And it's also the section where I said you could do improv, so hopefully that's all right with you to go ahead and leave it like that. But anyways, have fun with it. I hope you're still having fun. I'm a little fatigued. I do these in one sitting, so I get a little tired by the by the end of it. But hopefully, I'm assuming you're not doing this all in one sitting. But anyways, hopefully you're having a good time with it. You're enjoying it. And you're looking forward to having part D in your pocket, because after part D, then we have part A, and that's the end of the piece. So once you are comfortable getting to this point in the song, then come back for the next part of it. Okay, we're going to look at part D now. This is running from measures 256 through to... let me see, 238, 239, 240, 241, and beginning of 242, you could say. This is a nice section because it has a similar feel to, in regards to pace, to the section Bs that we've been looking at. But it's actually a very, very simple section of the song, rhythmically, and even what the notes are very simple. But it adds a nice kind of like pull back on the reins for the piece that makes then when we come back to our main theme, that theme A, it has a newness to that theme, even though it'll be the fourth time that we've heard it. So let's go ahead and get started on it. I'm just going to divide it. It's a little bit longer, but I'm divided into two sections. We're going to look at measures 256 all the way through 233/34. And it'll be real easy to put these hands together, but we'll just do right hand first like we've been doing and go from there. So I think it's the only time we're going to not start on an A in the sections we've been dividing it up in. So we'll see we have C, C, B, B, and then A, B, G, A. Then we have, again, C, 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 D, D, C, E. Again, that's C, C, D, D, C, E. Now here's the proper rhythm for this. You'll recognize this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Oh. Okay, now here's the proper rhythm for this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1. One thing to point out to you is that the first time your hand is on a C, I would use your middle finger because you're going down. Let me show you again. But when you go to the C once again and repeat it, I would use your thumb because you're going up. So let's put that together again. Just the right hand. Thumb. Okay, now let's take a look at the left hand. We're going to pause there, finish it off in a second, but let's do the left hand first. It also starts on a C because we have these two notes leading into it, and the two notes are in measure 226. We have C3, B, A. We have A repeated, then back up to C. And then it's a very similar thing. C, B, A, up to C, down to A. I'm gonna stop there. That's 233. So here's how it sounds rhythmically. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Again. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Now let's put those together because they complement each other very nicely. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and... Again. 1, 2. Now, before moving on, let's look at where we just stopped, which was measure 33. Let's look at 33 and 34. This is a left hand kind of little solo. We have A3, C4, B3, C4, B3, and then it lands on that A3 again. How's this sound? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. One more time. So I'm going to add that little section onto what we just did. So I'm starting in measure 226 and going through 134, landing on the first note in 135. I'm sorry, 235. 235. Okay, so 226 with the extra left hand solo. Oops. Okay. 1, 2. All right. Now we're ready to finish off part D. Look at the right hand. You'll see lots of similarities again. Those first two measures are almost exactly the same. Those first three measures are almost exactly the same. The two are exactly the same. Feel free to do as you wish with the left hand if you want to do exactly as written in the sheet music. I'm going to do that because I am actually reading the music as I'm playing. I don't always do that. I usually have it memorized, but for this one I am. So I'm going to stick with the left hand as is written in here. Feel free to follow that. If you want to do it exactly like that, great. If you want to do it a little bit differently, obviously that's totally fine to have that flexibility in there as well. So we're looking at measure 235 all the way through 248. Right hand only. We've got that repeated C again. C, C, B, B, and then A, B, A, G, A. A, B, A, G, A. That's 237 and 238. And then at 239, we have E. We're dropping way down to this E. I'm sorry, right here. E, E4, A4, E4, A4, B4, G4, this is G3, A4. Again. And that again should say G4, not G3, and measure 240. So let's look at this right hand from measure 235 through the end of the section. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then it goes right into part A again. So looking at the left hand, in measure 235, we have A, then C, B, A. Could mix that up a little bit, it's a little repetitive. And then ending with C, B, A. So here's how it is in the sheet music. Again. Pause there, get that really solid, and then add that in with the first part, do the whole part D together. We're going to go ahead and do that right now. 1, 2. Beautiful. So get that nice and smooth together, add that onto everything else, and then we'll come back. I'm going to point out a little bit of a difference at the very end of the piece, and we're going to play the whole thing together. Okay, so we're back for the final touches of the piece. Hopefully you're rather excited about having it all together now. You've probably, or at least maybe already played all of it together. I certainly would, out of excitement, if I already knew that I knew most of part A. The only thing I want to point out to you as something different in this rendition, this version of part A at the very end of the piece, we're looking at the end of measure 248 to the end of the piece. The only thing that's a bit different is actually a very similar section to what we had before. I'm sorry, let me take a look at something really quick. Okay, yeah. So at measures 255 and 256, it also has a slight variation. You could tell that that was a section maybe I had a little bit of trouble with remembering exactly how I did it. But again, I keep these because they sound nice. They have a nice little flavor. It doesn't sound chaotic, but it adds a little bit of interest to the piece. And in this particular piece, because it was one of the first ones, I just kept a lot of them, rather than having something very particular set down for what the piece was supposed to be. So what the section I'm talking about is the part. Oops. So that's how it is for a number of times. In the most recent part A, that's in right around measure 206 and following, we had this version instead. Okay, and now at the end we have a slightly different version from both of these. Oops. Let me do that again for you. So what you'll see is in measure 255 and 256, we have the same notes, but it just doesn't dance around quite as much. So we have the same E to A, back to E. Ah! There we go. And even the same D and E, but then it comes kind of directly back down. D, C, B, B, C, B, G, and then I slow down here so then you can get your hand right. E and A. So let me do this a couple of times for you so you can get it in your ear. Again. One more time. And with the left hand, that last chord. Oops. Alright. So I'll play this section A for you. Just so you can get a kind of feel for how do you end the piece, and then we'll do the whole thing together and have a nice copy of that. Of course, you're welcome to listen to it as it was originally recorded. I'll attach a link to that in the description if that's something that you like to listen to and play along with. Anytime I play anything, and I think this is true for a lot of musicians, that it's going to be slightly different. We're humans, and so we're not machines, so it's not going to be exactly the same. Sometimes that means the rhythms are slightly different, or the tempo's slightly different, or the notes are a little bit different, or I try something a tiny bit different. So it won't be exactly the same, but it's going to be pretty darn close. But if you want it to be exactly the same, you already have that video, and again, I'll link that below. So where I'm going to start, before we do the whole thing together though, I want to go ahead and start part A for the final time. This is in 248 to the end. will play that again for you, but I do want to note for those of you who are looking at the sheet music, the other measure that I just noticed is different is, let's see, 45, 46, 47, 48. 248 in the right hand. I would keep that the same as it is throughout. I think it sounds nice to return back to that. It's slightly different, but I would keep it as we've had before. So let me play that for you one more time, and then we'll add it all together. One more time because it was a little bit different. Okay, now let's go ahead. Once you feel comfortable with that, however you'd like to do it, I'd recommend either A, repeating it exactly like you've been repeating it before, or B, taking a look at that sheet music, or watching carefully what I'm doing here at the end. Just do something that has a nice slow down, something that kind of gradually ends the piece, tapers it off, has enough familiarity with what you've been doing before, that it seems like it belongs to the piece rather than kind of coming out of nowhere. You don't want to do that at the very end. Okay, and with that, let's go ahead and give it a shot going all the way through. Again, I'm going to try and do this as faithful to the sheet music as possible, but it won't be absolutely perfect. One for sure is when I get to that page flip, there's going to be a little bit of a stutter, a little bit of a pause, because I do need to be reading the sheet music and I've just got a page turn in there. So I apologize for that. Hopefully that doesn't mess you up very much. Again, if you're wanting to have exactly what I've got on that particular playthrough, there's the video for that. But also maybe it's nice to have a slight variation, or just to know how you can approach this if you make some mistakes or do something slightly different, not on purpose, how to kind of integrate that in. So let's do the whole thing, Traveler's Path, from beginning to end. Here we go. Part B. Part A. Part C. Part A. Part B. Part D. Part A. Okay, not too bad. I think Part D was probably my roughest. Like I said, I'm a little fatigued. But you also probably heard a couple of spots in Part A that were slightly different. I didn't quite get it exactly right, but hopefully you also heard that it flowed right through. Okay, let's flip it back, the camera back around, and we'll do a few concluding thoughts. Okay, once again, I hope this is helpful for you. If you've gotten to this point, hooray! Then you've gotten all the way through it. Also, if you are someone who enjoys these, excuse me, finds these helpful, two things. The first is feel free to send me an email or give me a comment, either saying as much and or if you have any suggestions or things that would be helpful for me to do. Maybe I move a little too fast on certain things, or you're not exactly sure what measure I'm on, or you know, whatever it is. You just let me know that. I'd be very happy to respond to that either in future videos like this, or if it's something like a particular skill of you're having trouble with and these videos are not quite sufficient for that, let me know. I'm open to making a different tutorial, separate tutorial video over that, depending on what the topic is. So that's the first thing. Let me know if there's something that I can do to be an additional help to you. And also, if you appreciate these, if these are helpful for you and you'd like to support in any monetary way, there's a number of ways to do that. You can see that below. Certainly purchasing the sheet music, the music album, signing up for Patreon, those are all very helpful for me personally, and I surely appreciate that. If you'd like to make any kind of donation or something like that that's distinct from those options, then there's also a place where you could do that if you feel called to do so. But anyways, I hope this is helpful for you. I like to make these available for free for anyone who really wants to work at these songs and get them in your kind of repertoire. And anyways, yeah, let me know how it is for you, and I appreciate all the comments on any of the videos, and hope it's a gift to you. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a good one.